I waved my wings to leave the soil on the ground. With light and hope, I went to another town. Oh Mother Nature, why take my wings away? Make me hit the ground with hope and excitement. Over the past few days, the missing MU-5375 cast a shadow on our hearts. With partial wreckage of the plane and the black box, we seem to get closer to the truth. There are several reasons behind this. Today, let me show you the terrifying causes behind the most incredible plane crashes in the history of aviation. On July 17, 2014, MH17 took off at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. It's a Boeing 777-200. After being put in commercial operation on June 7, 1995, almost nothing went wrong with this model. Stable engine and reliable design earned itself a title as the most reliable tool. In a plane bound for Malaysia, passengers were whispering about the accident 4 months ago. That writes. On March 8 of the same year, MH370 took off and disappeared en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. It's the world's most discussed aircraft accident. At that time, passengers were also on Malaysia Airlines. They made prayers for MH370. Velma, from Holland, was looking out from the window. She sat close to the right side with a fascinating view as she was flying first class. Suddenly she heard a strange sound. Like something approaching with a howling wind.
What's wrong?
She put her glasses on, trying to see it better. Next second, with a terrible tremor, she felt herself flipped over for 180 degrees. She can't hear anything due to the deafening sounds. She managed to open her eyes, only to find there was no hatch in front of her, but a hole instead. MH17 was piloted by Zhu Renlong and Hussein, both with over 10,000 flight hours and were good at kiss landing. They were veterans with high reputations. The plane was expected to fly across Eastern Europe and Central Asia and land in Malaysia. But the plane jolted like mad halfway through and the captain contacted ground control for a slight yaw of 37 kilometers to avoid the storm center. He got approved. The ground control witnessed the plane deviate from the route. But the cursor of MH17 suddenly disappeared. No matter how to send signals, the plane cannot be identified on the radar screen. A search and rescue operation was launched. It's shocked that it was the second disaster within half a year. According to the last radar signal, the plane was supposed to crash in Ukraine, where Russian-backed separatists and government forces were engaged in combat. They declared a ceasefire and poured intensive manpower into the search. At the same time, experts began to analyze. After much thinking, weather and mechanical failure were ruled out. A few days later, Ukrainian militants found the damaged black box on MH17. The result came as another disappointment. Theoretically, the black box, or CVR, can record sound during the accident. But after an almighty collision or whatnot, recording abruptly ended before the crash happened. And there are 4 black box recording devices in the cabin. According to the recording time gap, the microphone near the captain received a short sound first and then the cabin, which indicates that the accident occurred near the pilot's cockpit. In data analysis, the remains of the plane were also found. And the ground investigators have found some creepy things even. They found some strange metal fragments embedded in muscle tissue from the bodies of the victims. After testing, these fragments didn't belong to any materials in this plane. Later, they found a glass in the left cockpit, which was full of holes, as if something had exploded and penetrated it. Besides, trajectory analysis revealed that these holes were formed from the outside. After hearing it, one analyst with a military background stood up and said, "Isn't this a warhead?" with a tone of astonishment. Based on the obvious characteristics, the real culprit was found, an air defense missile, the Buk-M1. This Russian-made missile is 5.5 meters long and weighs 690 kilograms. Launched by a solid rocket thruster, it can auto-target in the air and explode in the vicinity of the object, releasing hundreds of shrapnel to penetrate the target. But how can a missile attack an airliner? Who'd have the guts to do this? The accident occurred when Ukraine was in the Crimean Crisis, the lead-up to a war between Ukraine and Russia. Back in 2014, various missiles and falling fighters can be seen in the low-altitude airspace. But it's always safe at the height where civil aircraft flies. 900 flights flew across here 1 week before the tragedy. For some reason, one of the missile auto-targeted this plane. In 2005, after investigation, the OVV believed the missile was launched by pro-Russian forces, who issued a denial and thought Ukraine needs to shoulder responsibility. To date, the question of who gave the order remain unanswered. It's almost 200 lives. How innocent they are. An airliner falsely killed by warhead? It's absurd to the utmost and outrageous to the deceased. I take it that many of you don't know about this, and I was surprised when reading its report. Look, we are now in a safe country. But back in the 1990s, when China was emerging from backwardness, there was a hijacking in our land that can only be seen in foreign news. At 6:55 a.m. on October 2, 1990, the passengers yawned and boarded Flight 8301 from Xiamen to Guangzhou. 2 minutes before the plane took off, a man with dodgy eyes was the last to board the plane with a suitcase. After safety instructions and seatbelt regulations, the plane took off. About 30 minutes later, the man suddenly stood up. He seemed to have made up his mind and walked to the cockpit step by step, with his suitcase in hand. Crew members hurried up to stop him and ask for reasons. But he suddenly pushed people nearby, and then shouted,
"I have 7 kilograms of explosives, stop me and I will detonate it."
Everyone was shocked by his words. The words were heard by all passengers and they shout and cried, a scene of chaos. Crew members let the man into the cockpit. The man left the captain to continue to fly the plane, then drove the others out and locked the door. He ordered the captain to change the route immediately, flying to Taiwan. Because Xiamen is very close to Guangzhou, it didn't take the plane much time to approach Guangzhou. The ground tower received notification from other members that the flight was hijacked. Ground negotiators began to negotiate with him, with the plane hovering overhead and its fuel tank running low. Airport immediately proposed to replenish fuel in nearby Hong Kong, and send the hijackers to Taiwan from Hong Kong. But the man seemed agitated. He didn't budge, demanding an immediate fly to Taiwan. Land in Hong Kong and he will trigger an explosion. But the plane did run out of fuel, and they have to make a forced landing. Guangzhou Baiyun International Airport cancelled all scheduled flights. But some parked planes can't go outside the airport. So, the plane had to park somewhere spacious. Soon 8301 touched the runway and started high-speed taxiing. After 300 meters, the nose suddenly rushed to the terminal. The man watched the plane land and began to grab the pilot's operation panel. The plane was like a huge runaway car, which directly crashed into a power vehicle. Followed by the explosion, the plane was slightly blasted off. With just landed aircraft that got no time to evacuate, the pilot was about to make another takeoff to stay clear of them. But they were out of time. With a deafening noise, the plane directly collided with another passenger plane B707 and cut it in half. Flight 8301 took a 360-degree flip and then fell apart on the ground. There was heavy smoke and fire. But the explosion was too fast that all 128 crew members met a tragic end. The hijacker's identity was soon identified as Jiang Xiaofeng, a purchaser of a county material bureau in Hunan, who was wanted by police for cheating 17,000 yuan. He wanted to flee elsewhere and made a foolish decision to hijack. Wreckage of this plane have been placed in the Aviation Museum near Guangzhou Baiyun International Airport for everyone to visit and to remember. After that incident, China's aviation security check became stricter, as well as railway transportation and urban underground traffic security check. Today, hijack has become a thing of the past. Apart from natural disasters and force majeure, we have made tremendous efforts to end social security problems that were once a big issue, nipping the most problem in the bud. Hope that the truth of MU 5735 will finally come out and give us an explanation. We can also learn our lesson and prevent such things from happening again. And now, let me give you another truism: please be bold enough to love those who love you. Life is short. Don't leave any regrets behind. No one knows what's going to happen, and when that day comes, you may not even have time for terminal lucidity. So don't leave behind any regrets when that day comes. There are truths within stories, whether it is for me, for him, or for you. Don't be Kong Yiji in real life. Live a sensible life and listen to you. If you like my story, please give like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you at the same time next week. Bye.